The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. So I mentioned earlier this week I'd have some more Netroots Nation New Orleans stories for you, and we're getting to them now because we ended up having a pretty busy week with other stories. A few things I wanted to mention. So one is, and this relates to Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk appearing on Fox News last weekend, which I did a couple of weeks before that. At Netroots Nation, there are people running all over the place. This was the conference I went to, the Progressive Media Conference I went to in New Orleans last weekend. People running all over the place with badges that say media, and then it has your name, and then it has your media outlet. I had one. Everybody has one. You've got to be registered for the conference. They've got security. If you don't have a badge, you don't get let in. Very simple. A guy was walking around, and his badge said media, and it had his name, and it didn't list a media outlet. And it turns out that he was not only with Fox News, but he was specifically with Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News. And he went over to the Free Speech TV booth where I was doing interviews and where a lot of different people were doing interviews. And they said, hey, we're doing a package for Tucker Carlson tonight on Netroots, and we'd love to interview some of the hosts that you guys have working with you here. And what Free Speech TV did was just email the different hosts that were doing stuff for Free Speech TV. So like RJ Eskow was there from We Act Radio hosting for Free Speech TV. I was there, a few different people. And they said, listen, this Fox News guy came around. It's a little weird because his name tag doesn't identify him as from Fox News, but I guess we believe he's from Fox News. Here's his email. It's at foxnews.com. You can email him if you want. Now, I've done 2 appearances on Fox News in my life. One, I was interviewed for 5 minutes, and then it was cut, and a piece of it was used in a package. 11 or 12 seconds ended up being used from a 5-minute interview. Wow. Not my best 11 or 12 seconds. And overall, it wasn't a great experience, and it was a huge waste of time for me to get a car and go to downtown Manhattan, do it, get out, waste of time.
You spend half the day, right, all preparing for that interview, and then they use 13 seconds.
Exactly. The other time was a couple weeks ago, and it was a live appearance, and that actually went quite well. The video on YouTube has 500,000 views. It brought in a record number of subscribers. It brought in a bunch of new members. It was a really great thing. So I was already kind of hesitant to participate in a package, especially when they say we're going to do a package about Netroots. I know that they're going to create like a 60 to 90 second thing to make everybody who's at Netroots look wacky and crazy. So I emailed the guy and I said, listen, Free Speech TV told me you're looking to talk to people for a package. Can you tell me the format, the duration, etc.? What else can you tell me? And the guy wrote back and said, yeah, listen, it would be for Tucker Carlson tonight or tomorrow night. It would just be me and the cameraman interviewing you. And we would just talk about, you know, the discussions happening at Netroots, like Russiagate and abolishing ICE. And at that point, I said, wait a second. Who's talking about abolishing ICE? Like, abolishing ICE wasn't an issue at Netroots. It's not even something I've been advocating for. I've said, okay, we can say we don't need ICE, but I don't know that for the midterms that's really the issue to run on. So immediately I got the gist that it was all going to be framed to make people look as crazy as possible. And then I said, of the 5 minutes, he said we would talk to you for 5 minutes. I said, of the 5 minutes, how much would make it into the final package? And he wrote back and he said, maybe up to 45 seconds.
Right.
Maybe up to 45 seconds. It was going to be another 10 to 15 second thing. And I just wrote back and I said, appreciate the opportunity. In my experience, participating in the pre-recorded packages on Fox has not really worked in my favor. But I would be glad to do a live appearance as I did a couple of weeks ago. And that was it. And the guy said, all right, have a good weekend.
So the first pre-recorded package that you did on Fox News, and this
years
was years ago.
Yeah.
What was the topic for that? It wasn't so much like a hit piece, right? It's not like they were trying to expose leftists.
It was when the Mozilla CEO had been caught making an anti-gay donation. Okay. And he ended up being forced to resign. They had me on arguing. I mean, I argued what I believed, which was Mozilla made a decision about who they want working for them. They violated no laws, and they decided the anti-gay donation didn't look good. And then they had people on the other side, like 3 or 4 people on the other side, arguing why this is discrimination and all this different stuff. That was the gist of it.
Yeah, so that's poor framing, but not nearly as bad as this would have been, right? They would have
My
probably
prediction.
just asked a whole bunch of gotcha questions
Yep.
on issues that, sure, some on the left talk about, like abolishing ICE is an issue for some.
Sure.
Russiagate is an issue, but few would make it a campaign issue.
Yeah.
And I think they would just take the sound bites where you didn't portray yourself as best as you would want to,
Obviously,
or maybe
yeah.
you didn't do a good job, and they would use that in a compilation.
They weren't going to say, let's find the 10 seconds of David Pakman where he looks super in control and knowledgeable, right? They're going to say, let's find the 10 seconds that make him look wacky and mix it in with other wacky things that we got. So I ended up not doing it. Interestingly, the day after I got back, Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk was back on Fox News. So he appeared on there months ago. I was on a couple weeks ago, and now they had him back on. And once again, I think he did a good job. And I think it is a worthwhile endeavor for progressives who, here's the thing, there are Democrats and leftists who appear on Fox News, but they are either sometimes paid contributors or they want to appear regularly. So they won't kind of tear it all down, as I like to say, and call out the questions themselves or the framing of the interview itself, or even go on and call out Fox News because they want to keep being invited on. I don't care if I'm invited on or not. Like the next time I go on Fox News, if an opportunity comes up for me to say this station is part of the problem, I'll do it. I don't care if they don't invite me back on. It really makes no difference to me. And I think that's why when people like me and Kyle go on, it ends up doing really well when it gets uploaded to YouTube and elsewhere, because we're not Democratic strategists, whoever, who wants to keep getting invited on Fox News. We really don't care one way or the other.
Yeah, it seems like most liberals who go on Fox News end up doing left-wing apologetics.
Yeah.
Or giving some credit to Trump on things, but
Sometimes.
then trying to expand the issue. And like, you know, if it's a question about like the economy, they'll say, yeah, we can give Trump a credit on a few things, but there are some underlying issues here. It still plays into the narrative that Trump's doing such a great job.
Yeah.
And then you have both sides of the discussion that are essentially pro-Trump at the end of the day, and that's all the Fox News viewers hear.
So where I am after doing the Fox News appearance, after watching Kyle's most recent Fox News appearance, after hearing from the audience, doing a poll on our YouTube channel, it's very clear that opportunities to appear live on Fox News, I should absolutely accept, and that those are a really good thing to expand the David Pakman show's sort of prominence, and also to sort of like poke even the smallest pinhole in their echo chamber balloon, so to speak. The packages, I think generally speaking, make less sense. Yeah. Although the one counter argument would be that even if they had framed me as some lunatic in the package, I could have then done a story and said, here's how it went down. They talked to me for 5 minutes. I said all these different things. Here's what they used, and this is how the machine operates. Like, that could have been interesting.
Okay, that would be good if you also had the full footage in context, which
someone
you would
have had to
record, and maybe they wouldn't be open to that, right? Maybe
how
they
can
would
they
say,
stop?
hey,
No.
we have the exclusive rights to interview you here and now. I guess they can't do that.
In a public or in a conference where you're just allowed to be there,
And they're a guest.
and there's cameras everywhere because there are events and things being filmed, I don't see how they could tell someone who's standing off camera that they can't record me while I'm being interviewed. That actually would have been a good idea, and next time I should maybe consider that.
You don't know how well it would have turned out, though. I
No.
mean, that's a little bit risky.
Yeah.
Like, what if you didn't do so well in the interview because of their line of questioning, and it turns out you had the full context, but
It was still bad.
it was still bad?
Then we would delete that video because that
Right.
would be really embarrassing. No, I don't know. I'll think about it, but it was an opportunity that nobody there accepted it, knowing how the whole package thing works. Okay, one other New Orleans story I want to tell. This is a disgusting story, so warning if you're listening during breakfast right now, or if you're about to sit down to a meal or listening to the bonus show on your lunch break, I would pause and come back to this story.
I'm actually going to leave.
Yeah.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
So, as some people may know, New Orleans gets pretty hectic. I described Bourbon Street as being completely out of control. It's insanely hot there. There's a ton of drinking going on, even during the day. And between conference events, I walked over to, I don't remember where I was going. I think I was going to meet somebody at a restaurant for a coffee or something like that in the middle of the day. I had a bunch of different meetings going on.
A likely story.
Likely story. I was going to a strip club. It's like, what could I even really be hiding, right? So I was going somewhere on a main street, and there's a crowd of people coming towards me, and suddenly, sort of like a circle, a buffer of empty space builds as people around a group of two men just generate space, right? They just get away from these two men. And all of a sudden, I see very clearly that there's two relatively young guys. One looked very young, like just barely old enough to drink. The other seemed more like he was maybe between 35 and 40 years old, or some 40, 45 years old, something like that. They're walking down. The crowd separates around them, and I just see what kind of looks like a disturbance. You know, I didn't identify exactly what was going on, but something didn't seem right. They were walking in a kind of zigzaggy way. There seemed to be some shoving going on. And at this point, they're probably like 50 feet away from me.
Sounds like you're describing the lead up to a fight at first, right? People getting away from these two guys in the middle, and they're doing a little pushing.
I thought maybe a fight was developing. And as I get closer, I realize that the younger of the two, number one, is very unsteady on his feet. He's kind of going back and forth and teeter-tottering, like one of those blow-up things that you punch and then it pops right back up. He's kind of like waving like that. And the other guy is increasingly kind of like pushing him. They're not aggressive shoves, but he's kind of pushing the younger guy away. And I keep getting closer and closer. And then all of a sudden, I start to see that the ground below the younger guy is starting to get wet. And I hear splashing. So I hear the noise of, like, if you imagine a hose, just not high pressure, but just kind of like watering the sidewalk, so to speak. You with me so far?
I'm with you, yeah.
And as I get closer, I start to realize that the younger guy, who's wearing shorts, appears to be urinating out in the middle of the street. It appears to be urgent urination based on the amount of liquid that seemed to be all over the place.
And also the location, because if it's not urgent, you tend to go somewhere else.
You tend to not do it out on the street in the middle of the day. Exactly right. And what the other older guy is doing is pushing him away, because clearly the drunk young guy is continuing to get very close to the older guy, and the older guy doesn't want to get splashed. And the entire scene around it was of horror, people looking and gasping. You could hear audible gasping for the entire time that I was walking by these two. And of course, I made a beeline for the edge of the sidewalk and stayed as far away from these guys as possible. How do you even, you know, a lot of people can't get that drunk. Like, in other words, it takes a certain, I don't know enough because I don't drink enough, but it seems like it takes a certain tolerance to even be able to be that drunk and still not pass out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I hear about stories, people doing crazy stuff when they're drunk all the time. And I always think, like, I probably would have thrown up and passed out before I got to that level.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, that the body has this defense mechanism where it will, you will either pass out or you might throw up as a way to get rid of what's making you sick or whatever, right? And somehow this guy, I don't know that I've ever seen someone this drunk, to be quite honest.
The audible splattering, I think, is the most disturbing, because that's high pressure. He must have been storing that for a long time, and apparently couldn't do it anymore. You can't even go down an alleyway? Like, what are you doing, man?
It was absolutely vile and disgusting, and there were probably 20 other incidents that were 80% of that, which I'm not even going to bother telling you. So it's quite a... I called it a total shit show, what I experienced in New Orleans. Beautiful city, culture, fantastic food was extraordinary, people were great. But I don't know if it's the extreme heat and humidity or what it was, but it was just a mess in downtown New Orleans.
Well, I wouldn't call it a shit show. I would call it maybe a piss show.
Yeah, it was quite literally. It was that second thing. So anyway, sorry if that story is disturbing, but I forgot to tell it on Monday, and then we talked about it here in studio, and we determined I might as well just tell it and get the story out, so to speak.
It made the cut.
It made the cut. It made the cut. All right, what's going on next week? Just a normal week, right?
Yeah, we got a normal week coming up.
At a certain point, we're going to have to talk about, you know.
But that's not now.
What's coming at the end of the month and into September.
Yeah, the new host we have to mention.
Right. I'm being replaced, actually, on the David Pakman Show. No, we will talk about, people may have noticed that we've not had or talked about summer vacation yet. And that is going to be a topic of discussion. But the good news, as a hint, is that we will have guest hosts. So there will not be a period during which the show goes dark. And I think some people will like that. Some people won't. Some people actually email me when we have a guest host and they say, can you go back to running repeat episodes? Because we'd rather that than the guest host.
Yeah, well, on many other platforms, you can just watch an old episode if you'd like.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Everyone's satisfied.
We'll talk to you. Well, no one is ever satisfied.
No one's satisfied.
That's what we're figuring out.
Okay.
Everyone's equally dissatisfied with our decisions about how to manage the show. We'll talk to you on Monday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.